Mark is an amazing creative producer with Big Heart. I'm sure many of you know about Big Heart, which is Australia's leading arts and social change organisation. He has worked with young people, including his skate project, and I know you two were talking about that last night, and is changing young Indigenous lives in WA's Pilbara region with creative play. So can I introduce Mark Leahy, please? You got the boing too, I'll leave it for you.
Okay, thank you.
You're right, no, just going to lift the mic.
Yeah, nice one. And is this?
Clicker should work. Here's your slides.
Oh, yeah, nice one. You know April, yes. I knew someone would know April. April's famous. Hi, everyone. My name's Mark Leahy. I'm a musician, creative producer, drummer, former teenager, and sometime educator and the creative producer of an incredible project that I'm very proud of called Neo Learning. And before I go any further, I'd just like to acknowledge that it's a really great honour and pleasure to be here on Ngunnawal country, and I'd like to acknowledge elders past, present and future. I'd also like to acknowledge and send a big waiba and wandiwa to Ngalama and Yinjibundi country in Western Australia, which I'll get to talk to now. I'll talk to the project of place, and thank them for their incredible generosity and spirit and sharing knowledge and culture and good times and vibe and fun around the country, and empowering me to talk about it with you all today. So it's a great pleasure. It's also a great pleasure to be here, and thank you for having me. Let's see, my little game that I'm going to play with myself today is I'm just going to click it, and what comes up, I'll speak to the slide. So I'm not going to look at my iPad unless I panic. If you see that happening, it's pure panic stations, but great. So this will be about Big Art. Big Art is an organisation that's 30 years old. We're an arts and social change company. Started in Burnie in Tasmania, and the easiest way, I guess, to summarise what we do is we make, we build and we drive. So making art, building communities and driving change. And sort of my favourite thing I've ever heard someone say about the company, or the kind of philosophy about the work, is that it's harder to hurt someone if you know their story. So the company works with communities and makes sure that we kind of lift up the sometimes forgotten stories of around the country, and we'll get to one in a minute, and highlight that and add that into the national conversation to drive, positive social change. So yeah, Roban. Has anyone ever heard of Roban here? Anyone? Yeah, awesome. So Roban is a town in the Pilbara of Western Australia. It's Ngalama country, and it's an Aboriginal community of about 1,200 people. It's right in the middle of the kind of, essentially the three biggest mines in the country, and lots of people have been driven off their land and driven into community together and sort of pushed around and marginalised and spoken about in very negative terms. And that's not the full story, as we all know, of any community. So Big Art was invited to Roban by senior women about a bit over 10 years ago now, and they sort of said to us, let's work together, let's work on an intercultural basis, and let's kind of share stories of strength. Let's start with what's strong and not what's wrong, and let's kind of highlight the stories of these, in particular, incredible young people that are in the community that are being largely left behind in the national conversation, in education, in all those kind of unfortunate kind of statistical based things that we often hear about. So that was the mission, and the mission was from senior women to say, like, culture, and it's not a heritage concept. We often talk about shared culture in the country, and we say First Nations culture, and we always think back in time, and they're saying to us very clearly a couple of things. One is, we're going to work together and you guys are going to get it wrong over and over and over and over, but we want you to keep going. We want you to check in a lot, but don't be afraid to get it wrong, and don't be afraid to check in, and just keep that consultation going, because inactivity drives some really sort of negative things and kind of gets us into the spot that we've been in the past. And yeah, the other thing was that to champion the young people and share their stories and share and create stories with them and build digital skills and keep them going into the educational system in a really meaningful and positive way. So yeah, that led us to the working up in the community to make great content, to build digital skills and drive an understanding of First Nations perspectives. And so that led to a project called Neomad, which is set in 2076. It's an incredible comic book, adventures of young people in particular, sharing their stories in the future. It's sci-fi, it's out there, it's weird, and it's an example of giving young people an opportunity to play and make and put their stories out there in however they want to put it out there, to tell their story. And the comic was really successful. It won the 2016 Gold Ledger Award. For those of you who know about comics, it's a pretty big deal. And this is Maverick and Sydney, brothers. They're now young men, but I thought it would be good if we could just hear from them. So I'm just going to press play on their video. Go.
Hi, we're the Love Punks, and we made the Neomad comic. We used Photoshop to color in the comic. When you do Photoshop, it's very complicated, and you have to make sure all the costumes and the colors are all the same, so it looks perfect. The best person at the Photoshop is Nathaniel. If you want to do it neater and quicker, you must link the layer. And the second one is me. And the third one is me. EJ, not you. Yes, it's me!
And what made you think to use these colours?
So I thought we wanted to make it an army color.
That looks like he's got stripy stockings on.
Well, I put it on him so it can look like a love bug. We went to the Robin house to record our voices so we can put it into the comic. Edwin Darren, what are you doing? So we'll have speech bubbles up above us.
I'm coming, love punks, I'm coming.
In the comic, my name is Karawara.
They were carrying me.
And I named you Karawara, shooting star.
In the comic, my name is Born Ready, and I got a little pet named Stanley the Tank Color, and he's right there.
Look at that, Stanley. It's so pretty.
Great, so that was Neomad, and Neomad is like a story about superheroes and empowerment and like sharing your, like I was saying, sharing your story however you want to do that. And like the lasting legacy and impact of Neomad is it has inspired the next generation of young people to do the same, and that is like a real bit of superhero work. So on the left there, that's RJ and Murphy, and off the back of the royalties from the Neomad comic, the community was able to purchase a building, the Digital Lab, and it sits right next to one of the big mining companies' little buildings. And then very proudly sits this Digital Lab, which is a making space, a play space. And we do workshops there every week. And I love sharing this image because it's just exactly what it's all about. So that's young RJ, a couple of years ago, teaching Murphy how to use a digital drawing app called Procreate, and they're just making, they're playing, we're just learning how to do things, and it's building really solid skills and driving really good educational outcomes for young people. And that it's really important that the space, the Digital Lab itself, is always a safe space. It's really, you know, like little things like we're well known for making good ham and cheese toasties, where like we have solid mentors that connect in every week. COVID turned out to be something that we were able to take advantage of, like experimenting with virtual workshops. So now we have like incredible mentors from all over the country. And if a young person wants to, like a real life example is a couple of young people want to do an AR language tour of the community. And so now we're able to beam in incredible AR artists into the digital lab with continuity, with good flow, and to keep kind of scaffolding and building the skills. We've also taken advantage of that in the music space and done lots of music making with young people, and that's young Jaquil, who's an incredible musician and has composed for, with his peers, composed for some TV and yeah, I'll tell you a bit more about that in a second. So that led to another thing, the community sort of saying, let's keep sharing these stories, let's find another way to amplify it, let's find another audience. And that led us to building the neo-learning education platform. So neolearning.com.au, if any of you are primary school teachers or know primary school teachers, please share that with them. And it's a way of sharing, like it says, future-focused digital learning, which is grounded in community. So sharing the stories of these young people to primary schools all around the country. And it's been really successful. It's been, we've worked with sort of over 5,000 students, just sharing digital skills, building together, making together. And yeah, just a couple of photos there of some schools in South Australia doing some neo-learning workshops. Virtual delivery, there's April again for those of you fan spotting. And we've broken down the content itself to make sure that we're playing and we're making in every sense. So we do it exactly the way we do in the digital lab, where we're either doing live virtual workshops, where we do digital drawing or beat making, like we do in the lab. We also do like smartboard contents where students are building their own well, essentially outcomes, so whether they're making little bottles to put messages in to send up to Robin and things like that, and also like just super short and punchy content like the NeoMad podcast, which is really cool as well. So that's all there. Yeah, and we've been evaluated, you know, within an inch of our lives a couple of times, and that's great. And, you know, these three things I think are really important. So that there was really strong participation and engagement in the virtual classroom with young people, so mostly non-First Nations kids and connecting to First Nations kids, having a really active like making, playing time, which was really great. There was a massive increase in cultural understanding, and there was a really high level of student enjoyment. And the reason we measured that and think that it's important is, you know, that kind of thing about, you know, neurons that fire together, wire together. Like if that's a really positive experience for young people connecting with First Nations peers, then that's sort of setting us on that's a good start, you know? So yeah. And I just wanted to share this really quickly because I promised I would, but this is kind of where neo-learning's going next. So going to be completely run out of the digital lab in Robin and run by young people who've come through the digital arts program. And this is Trinea talking about her cousin who composed a song for the show Red Dirt Riders out of the digital lab, which was an incredible outcome. And it's an example of when you give young people the opportunity just to make some beats, and people hear about how good it is, that the Australian Children's Television Foundation reached out and said, how about they compose for the show that we're making on Nalama country? And so here's Trinea in the education resource, which came off the back of that, sharing the story of her cousin and his composition.
The track in that scene was made by my cousin Lane Smith using melody loops, drum breaks, textural sounds. He did this using live loops on GarageBand. We think that that track works because it has such great energy, it has a good tempo, it has 120 beats per minute, and many different instrumental loops were used, such as drums, keyboards, and synthesizers. Lane added some arrangement changes to the scene. Did you guys see how the camera angle changed when the music changed as well? That was great composing for the screen.
Yeah, so that's awesome, and that's on the ACTF website if anyone, you know, it's a free resource if anyone has young people that want to sort of make beats on computers and add them to a scene and Trinae will take you through exactly how that's done in the digital lab and share that with you as well. So yeah, it's been really successful with schools everywhere, and in particular I just wanted to touch on 2 schools here in Canberra. The link here to Ngunnawal country is that the Canberra Hospital School does a neo-learning session every Wednesday, and they've found that the play and the digital arts and the making has been really, really engaging and really successful for their students that are staying at the hospital sometimes for a long time and sometimes for a short time, and it's kind of been able to help heal young people and get them kind of back into the swing of education when they're going through something with their health. And the same with the, it's called the Cottage School. It's here in Canberra for young people that are experiencing mental health difficulties and transitioning back into, I guess, mainstream education. And they do neo-learning every Friday. They play, they do digital drawing, they link in with the lab. And those sessions are really highly productive, and we've had some incredible feedback from teachers, which is really great. I'll finish with this. This is something, again, another connection to Canberra. It feels very serendipitous. But just down the road, it's probably over there, the portrait gallery somewhere. Over there. Somewhere around here is the National Portrait Gallery next to the National Gallery of Australia, and they have an exhibition called Gulga Wanigu, and this is straight from the Digital Lab in Roban. Remember RJ, who we saw on the slide? That's RJ's self-portrait. He's now hanging in the National Portrait Gallery until October, and it's an example of RJ wants to play, he wants to make, he wants to draw, he wants to do art, and all we need to do is just set up the facility and the access to that. And young people, when they get that opportunity, will achieve incredible things. So I encourage you, it's a free exhibition. If you have time, it's here till the 2nd of October. And it's just in a little pocket of the portrait gallery, but it's really great. Again, Murphy, who you saw in the first picture a couple of years ago learning from RJ, that's him, top left. He's hanging in the National Portrait Gallery as well. And these outcomes are incredible, there they are. And I just also promised that I'd share some artworks with you all. So Fabriana Togo here is sharing her digital artwork of Murujuga, which I think is incredible that it's not like one of the wonders of the world. It's the oldest art gallery in the world. It's up there in the Pilbara. There's 1 million petroglyphs. They're 30,000 years old, and we're on the same country as that. And Fabriana is sharing that story through her art. If you get a chance, just go. It'll change your life. His incredible Kimberly's Windy Afternoon, her portrait of country. It's also hanging in the portrait gallery. RJ's turtle. Super cool. Heaps of fun. This one didn't make it, very controversially, because it's a portrait of me by one of the young people, and I don't know why I got excluded, but I think it's probably that. But I promised him that I'd share it with you all. And then finally, young Violet, who's 6, that's her portrait, self-portrait that is also in the portrait gallery. So I encourage you to go to the exhibition. I encourage you to make spaces for young people just to do what they want to do, to play, to make, to share. And if you know any teachers, neolearning.com.au, and thank you so much for having me.